Well, g'day. I'm Keeonra from Keeonra Music, and this person right here is Mike from Creative Source and Studio One Revealed. Welcome, Mike.
Oh, thank you for having me. Wonderful.
I'm so excited to have Mike here in my home, in my studio. Yes, he was invited. He just didn't walk in, so it's okay. But I'm very happy to have you here, Mike. Look, welcome to the channel.
Yeah, well, thanks for inviting me. First of all, Keeonra asked me into her home. I've met her family, which was...
I'm sorry about that.
No, that was a delight.
Okay, that's all right,
You've got a lovely family, and I had a meal as well.
Yes, you did.
And this is what I've got to do to pay for it.
Yes. So you've got, it was a really good meal, so you've got several hours. No, we've got an hour. We've got an hour, so that's good.
Hi, Michelle, whoever you are. I don't know Michelle.
And Jade. Yay. So Michelle is a friend of mine in real life. She's been a fan of mine for many years when I was singing with Wasso, came to all my concerts, which was wonderful, and we actually worked together for many years.
Cool.
So Michelle and I are really good friends, and of course Jade Starr, who
is a legend.
In her own lunchbox, which is amazing, and currently doing all sorts of wonderful graphics with clowns. So I think of you, Jade, when my daughter was showing Mike earlier about her clowns. They're very similar to your clowns, so I'm a bit concerned. Should I be concerned? Anyway.
And Jade does amazing... let me get in here. Jade does amazing Mid-Journey work as well.
Yes, I love Mid-Journey. I love Mid-Journey, but I've been using for my artwork, I used for my album Firefly by Adobe, which is also cool. But you can't get things like Spider-Man and Superman and stuff. Mid-Journey you can, which is really good. I like it. Thank you guys for joining us. We appreciate it. Let's get the disclaimer stuff out of the way first. We're going to talk about mental health and all sorts of wonderful things about that. But as a disclaimer first, neither myself or Mike are professionals in the mental health space, but we have had some experience. And in the clicky bits in the description down below, there is a link to helplines. If you or somebody you know is currently distressed or sometime in the future may be distressed, then there is always help available. And there's some great resources on that website. And there's also some helplines for your location in a variety of countries. It may not be your specific location, but please reach out and get some help if you need. That is vitally, vitally important. Okay, so mental health. Why can we talk a little bit about mental health? Well, first of all, I have had an interest in the brain and psychology for many years because of neuroplasticity.
And you've got a brain too.
I did have a brain scan once and I didn't find anything, but apparently I do have a brain, so that's helpful. I've done a Bachelor of Psychology. I finished only over a year ago, and I worked as an allied mental health professional, a mental health support worker, and a mental health first aid instructor. So I have worked with those who are severely mentally unwell. And you yourself, I didn't know, you worked as an allied professional as well for a little while?
Yes, I was a care worker many years ago, and I worked not as a qualified nurse but in mental health as a carer many years ago. And then I also I didn't finish my nurse training. I did about 2 years of nurse training before I decided to become a busker because it was much easier. But and there was a fair amount of mental health placements in that as well. So but I wouldn't call myself qualified in any way. I'm more qualified on the other side, having mental health issues. than and I mean that seriously, than helping people. But yes, I've got a little bit of a background. Yeah.
So we both also have, yes, as Jade has indicated in the chat, having a brain often helps, and having one that works at an okay-ish sort of capacity often helps too. But we both have had, and we're quite okay in discussing our lived experiences in mental health. So I've have in the past experienced anxiety and depression and thoughts of suicide. So that has been my past. And this isn't going to be a session of, I'm going to share all the ins and outs of it, but it is good to know that, someone who seems normal can, have mental health conditions. And I believe you've had something yourself.
I have had over the years several periods of my life have been somewhat slowed down by usually in reaction to things that have happened, to life experiences, but there has been, periodically times that have been very different. Mostly anxiety for me, but depression can come as a result of anxiety sometimes, almost as a secondary symptom. And I don't mind sharing that I've pretty much been, and probably in the middle of a mental health problematic episode and have been for about the last 3 months or so.
Yeah.
So it's pretty timely for me. And thankfully, a lot of friends have been helpful, including Keeonra here. And, yeah, that's, as you said earlier about reaching out, apart from it being a part of a disclaimer, it's really imperative to reach out. And you can do that in all kinds of different ways. And I think life teaches us that we can reach out to friends and family. If you do reach out, you'll usually find there's an angel somewhere, someone you didn't quite expect to be the helper that you were going to need. And I highly recommend, from an Australian perspective, and I use this, I highly recommend helplines like, in Australia, it's called Lifeline. There's a few others, actually. Are you going to get some links for different countries? Or
Yes, that is in the description already below. Cool. Yep, so there's a link to an organisation who actually sources all of that and keeps all of that information up to date on their website, plus a range of other resources.
Yep.
So that is in the description below this video, so you can check that out. For people in Australia, and I know for myself, and in any country that you are, find out what the number is when you're well, or you don't need it for anyone, and put those in your phone. Just put them in your phone. Lifeline in Australia is 13, 11, 14. Why do I know that? I used to teach it when I taught mental health first aid, and I used to get every person in attendance in the class, get your phone out now, right now, put it in your phone. Just put it in there. You don't know when you might need it. It's as important as police and fire and everything else. Your local doctor, your local takeaway. It's more important than that, I think. But it's one of the numbers that you don't know you need it until you need it.
Right. Yeah.
And it's one of those things that if you have it, or either for yourself or for a friend. And I think it's vitally important, because we're going to go on to that in a moment we're talking about how to be there for a mate, a friend, family, but how do you actually be there for someone? And that's one of the key things. If you've got this phone number in your phone and you're trying to help someone, if you don't feel that you can help someone, at least you can say, hey, let's phone them together.
Yeah.
And I think that can be very helpful, can't it?
I mean, I'm not professional on this, but just from my own experience, it may seem a bit strange to you to talk to a stranger about your issues, but there's some things which are actually really good about that. First of all, they're not invested in you, which is, maybe that doesn't sound good, but it's actually very good, because when you talk to friends and family, and do that if you can, I'm not saying you shouldn't, but they will sometimes have an emotional reaction to what's happening for you. And that can be comforting, but it can be not so helpful, because you're concerned that you're upsetting them and you're saying things that may upset them. And it's maybe a little bit more difficult to be 100% honest and open. What I found with a voice on the other end of the phone, who's obviously a professional, you can't shock them. There's nothing you can say about your thoughts that can shock them. They've heard it all before. And you can just really offload without any guilt, feeling any guilt about doing it, which sometimes for me personally, you can feel a bit bad leaning on your friends and your family. So I think for me personally, a combination of both things works really, really well, you know.
And just on that note, as you say, I mean, statistically, from a clinical perspective, and I don't want to talk in generalised clinical perspectives too much, but, you know, having that support network, a lot of research has shown that is one of the key factors in the recovery process for people, to be able to sort of bounce back, so to speak. And I don't like using bounce back, but to be able to cope with that and manage that situation better is to have that support network, to be, you know, to give yourself permission to use those help numbers, to give yourself permission to talk to a family person if that is safe to do so, and acknowledging that in some family circumstances or relationship circumstances that may not be the safe person to talk to, and sometimes a stranger on the other end of the line is the better way to go. But if you do have some friends around, then that can be a very positive thing going forward, and certainly in a time of crisis.
And I think in the modern times, a lot of us may reach for things like YouTube or web pages to get hints and advice about different things. And it really is incredible. There's a lot of really good resources on there. On the other hand, if you get yourself along in Australia, you can go and see a GP, and then you'll get referrals to a mental health professional. And just the difference with that, and a little bit similar to the helplines, is it can be a bit more interactive. So YouTube and things like that will give you some real basics. Like for me personally, I've learned a lot about kind of breathing exercises and grounding and things like that on YouTube. It's all out there. It's wonderful. But yeah, talking to someone who can, where it's a communication, then they can sort of tailor it to your needs, which is so. Look, if you do feel shy about asking for professional help, all I can say to you is just do it, because it just makes a big difference. And the other thing is that for me personally, again, you feel like you're doing something about the problem rather than just sitting with it. Even the first appointment can feel kind of like a bit like, oh, I'm actually, there's some action happening here and someone cares about this and someone's going to help me, which is wonderful.
In saying that too, I mean, it can be quite scary too, because I remember many years ago, my first time I went to Psychologist, and I was studying my psychology degree, so I absolutely knew what was going on with me. I knew what the best course of action to take was, to seek professional help, and I did that straight away. And but it was scary. It was like, well, my first thought was not having enough knowledge about the area was, and still learning myself, was, I'm broken. There's something wrong with me. I need to be fixed. And I didn't want anyone to know that, you know, that I was not quite right. But I was very much, I was very lucky. And this is a very important thing too, that if you go to see someone professionally, and I strongly encourage people to do so if that is what you choose to do so, and it is totally your choice. If you choose to do so, then it might not be the first person you see. You may not have the right fit with the first person. Don't paint all professionals with the same brush. They are all very, very different. The first mental health first aid course I ever taught was to a room of 40 psychologists, and they were all varying degrees, from people who commended me on the 2-day course I delivered all the way to someone who I wouldn't even let them look after my dog. So they were all professionals, all with the same, you know, knowledge and experience and qualifications, but they are just human beings. And the same goes with your GP or any professional. You know, if you don't click with them, if you don't get along with them, if you're not on the same page, don't think that, oh, well, I've seen a psychologist, it didn't work, I can't get any professional help. No, try someone else, please, because that sometimes happens. Not always, but it sometimes happens. Yeah, absolutely, Jade. Yeah, totally agree. Don't stick with a doctor you don't align with, because we are all very different human beings. And unfortunately, the topic of psychology especially, if you know the DSM-5, it tries to put you in these little confined boxes, which I really dislike. And it was another reason why I didn't sort of go on to become a psychologist, because it's
put me in a box here, haven't you?
We are in
I can't quite fit without my hair. Look at that. This is what I look like, folks, with no hair.
I have a little studio. It's really small here, guys. Oh, dear. Manny from the Lily Pillies. Welcome. All hail Manny from the Lily Pillies.
Oh, great. The Lily Pillies have been on my channel.
They're awesome.
Yeah,
I love their music.
Really good music. Yeah.
Really
awesome
cool music.
Yeah.
So way better than my music.
So,
anyway.
There you go. Anyway.
Segue.
So, am I right in saying, because you're the professional here, really?
Yeah.
2 more common forms, depression, anxiety.
Yeah, absolutely. So with...
Can I just ask you for a definition of those? Because sometimes it's some of those words that get thrown around, which people are not necessarily sure what they mean.
Oh, okay. So majority of mental health disorders, anxiety, even people with things like borderline personality disorder, which I worked with people with that, with schizophrenia, schizoaffective disorder, and the list goes on. There's many mental health disorders. With a lot of those, anxiety and or depression is part of that.
Yeah.
But for majority of people, anxiety and or depression is the only thing that they may experience. So anxiety is different to stress. Yep. So we can have a very stressful day and we feel very anxious about things. But anxiety and or depression, both, it is the impact that it has on someone's ability to sleep, ability to eat, ability to hold a job or study, ability to work, ability
or run
to
a YouTube channel.
Or run a YouTube channel, or write a song, or whatever the case may be. So it's the impact it has, and for a doctor to diagnose it as part of the DSM-5, which is an international document which is agreed upon by all medical professionals around the world.
Is that the questionnaire they ask you at the doctor's surgery, or was that something different?
That's part of it.
Okay.
That's just a tool that they use. There are standard questionnaires for a whole range of things to assist them in diagnosing what may or may not be going on there.
Yep.
So one of the things that the DSM-5 is basically a book that has all the diagnoses in it. So and it's updated.
Okay. Yep.
So for example, even years ago, grief was a mental health disorder. I don't believe it is now, but again, I'm not a true professional. I'm a mental health allied professional. So
you would have thought. I'm sorry to interrupt.
That's
so
okay.
Grief seems to me like normal psychology.
Yeah.
Although it's painful and difficult, may include depression.
Correct.
Right. But it's sort of like childbirth is normal health.
That's right. Yeah.
It's painful.
Yeah. Oh, you heal. Yeah.
So grief is something.
Only for the first 30 years.
So that's like an expected reaction to loss, right?
That's right.
Okay.
And in saying that, good point, because we can experience grief with anything, with any loss.
Yeah.
So a loss of job, a moving house, a loss of my old home and change and all that sort of thing. So all of those things can be stresses.
Yeah.
So stresses can cause stress upon us.
Yeah.
But anxiety is when we can no longer do the things that bring us joy.
Yeah.
All right. Or we can't work, or we can't get out of bed, or we have panic attacks. You're right, Michelle. Grief is cumulative, and grief is different for everyone. Like mental health disorders are different for everyone as well. Dude, Jamie Mallender is in the house. Welcome, my friend.
G'day, Jamie.
So mental health disorders can come in a range of things. Anxiety is when it impacts and you're more anxious, you're more panic attacks look exactly the same, unfortunately, as a heart attack. So if you are helping someone or you yourself are not sure, is this a panic attack or is it a heart attack, call an ambulance if you can. I've had several trips in ambulances throughout my life because every time I have a panic attack, they've been different, which really is tough. And I've had several people, I have a family history of heart disease and heart attacks. So that is always a challenge for me personally. And anxiety is something I have to manage on a daily basis. It's one of those things that I try and do so many things. We'll talk about what we can do for our positive well-being in a little while. So that's anxiety. Depression, on the other hand, is again a real sadness, a real feeling down, really not wanting to be a part of things. Like you might be a bit more withdrawn. You might not be in contact with your friends. You can't get out of bed. You've got no energy and you feel like you're in this. For me personally, everyone's different, but I have talked to a lot of people who have had a similar experience, because we can never say to someone, I understand. It's probably the worst thing you can say when you're talking to someone, because no, I can't understand what you've ever experienced. You can never understand what I've experienced. I can't understand
you right now. I'm just like, what's she going on about?
I know, right? I do that.
Yeah. Carol. Sorry.
But yeah, so thank you very much. Yeah. But it's often described as being this really dark, big black hole and just not seeing any light and not being able to get out, crawl out of this cave sort of thing.
So the one thing I've found both with anxiety and depression when I've experienced them, sometimes at the same time, is that they're sort of they're a little bit circular.
Yeah.
Look in a different way. But depression for me, not only do you feel that dark cloud, but even when you look out at the world, you only tend to see the negative things.
Yep.
You focus on the negative things, and then that makes you feel a whole lot worse because the whole world seems like a piece of crap.
Yeah, yeah.
But so anxiety for me, just again speaking personally, folks, because I'm not a professional, but so Keeonra can correct me if I say the wrong words, but anxiety for me is a little bit circular in the sense that you literally do get anxious about being anxious. That it becomes a concern to you. For me, I used to think it was the things that were going on in my head, but then I realised it's the physical reaction that you get with it, which is actually quite distressing as well. And again, it feels a bit circular. Your heart's pounding or whatever this particular symptom is, You're
sweating. You feel like you've got to run and all the rest of it.
And then, that's making you feel even more anxious, worse. Those things themselves. So, I'm 55, guys, and I'm only learning about some of these things now. And what hadn't occurred to me in the previous decades when I suffered from this was that the things that were in my head, the things I was anxious about, the thoughts, the situations, the people, the money problems, the relationship problems, whatever it was at the time, was where my focus was.
Yep.
And although I was experiencing physical symptoms, I didn't try to interact with them because I thought, they'll go away when I fix my problems, right?
Yeah.
But here's the little sort of gem that I found. And thanks to you a little bit for something you showed me the other day, is that, you can't right now tackle all of those life problems. But what you can do is recognise, for example, and I'm going into a little bit, where you are. And often where you are is quite safe. You'll be on your bed or on your sofa or what have you. And then to get in connection with that, that's something you can do at any point in your life, even if you can't control what's happening with your finances, your spouse, or whatever it is that's going on for you. Lack of subscribers on your YouTube channel.
Right? Yeah.
Right? You can always say, well, here I am. I'm on the sofa. The sofa is soft. You can sort of describe those things. I know there's more of a structure to it than what I'm explaining now, but essentially you can connect with what's happening. And the remarkable thing about it is if you do that, the physical symptoms tend to subside and it just makes it a whole lot easier to cope with. Maybe an hour later you feel like shit again, but at least you can give yourself a little bit of respite, which is really important, I found personally. Yeah.
And that does work with a lot of people. It doesn't work with everyone, but most people with those sort of grounding exercises.
Yeah.
And a lot of those resources, like in the link in the description below, that website, if you explore that website more, it has a lot of videos and a lot of information on there about how to cope with anxiety and depression. And those exercises tend to help because you can just be in that moment, in that, present moment, in that time, in that place, and acknowledge what you can control rather than, the bills that need to be paid, or the kids are doing this, or the spouse is doing that, or work was doing that, or whatever the external things are that really feel like they're just building up on top of you. So it's one of those things that you can do, those grounding exercises, and a lot of those things are really good to do when you're really mentally healthy. So when things do get on top of you and you've got anxiety where you're stressed and it's impacting on your life and livelihood and relationships and all that sort of thing, or you're depressed and you feel like things are out of control and you're in this black hole, and again, it's impacting on your work or ability to be with friends or family or whatever. That's when they sort of define anxiety, depression. And also if it's been, I think, 2 weeks of that period of time, and that's for a formal diagnosis. So
Jade was just saying in the chat there, she said, I talk to myself out loud all the time in my home so my brain isn't so cluttered internally. And, it's sort of the other thing that I've noticed is that's one of the other benefits of talking to Lifeline. Again, I'm using an Australian phone line example. There's different ones around the world. So that circular stuff that goes on, those thoughts going round and round and building up, it sort of creates a little short circuit for them. And then what I've started to do is just write some things down as well. And it's amazing, just the act of writing it down. You said to me, and I believe this is true, and however you want to do it, but it seems something about pen and paper, which seems a little bit more cathartic than just doing it on like your phone on a notepad, which do that. I mean, if that's the way you want to do it. But I've got a notebook scribbling it. I can't read my own handwriting, so there's nothing embarrassing later on. So, but it's really, I found that really, really useful. And what Jade's saying there, I can imagine. I don't personally do that, but I can imagine it really helps.
Yeah. And it's all about getting it out rather than letting your thoughts ruminate all the time. And I'm a big advocate of something. It's a cognitive behavioural therapy called ACT, Acceptance and Commitment Therapy. And ACT is really a good one for people who are creators and creatives and musicians. So this form of therapy is really, really good. And I've been an ACT practitioner for about 7-8 years now, and I've done all of the international courses on ACT in a variety of ways, for anxiety, depression, for grief counselling as well, for a whole range of things. And I really like the way it's done because it's all about metaphors. It's all about practical tools like the grounding exercise which is called dropping anchor, all about practical things like writing in a journal. But not everything fits for everyone, and we've got to accept that not everything will help everyone. We're all individuals and we like different things or don't like different things. But it's worth giving it a try, like a little bit of an experiment. Mindfulness is something that's sort of thrown around a bit too much these days, but mindfulness can be beneficial of just being in the present moment of, for example, I'm being mindful in this YouTube live stream right now where I'm really not thinking anything else than the task at hand. And that's what mindfulness really is, whether it's a breathing mindfulness or mindfulness washing the dishes or mindful eating or mindful walking. You're noticing everything around you. You're noticing what you're feeling at the moment. You're noticing what you're hearing, what you're seeing, what you're touching and smelling and all the rest of it.
Yeah.
And it brings you back to your sense of self, as you said before, of what you can control. But from a brain perspective, it actually moves your thoughts from the back part of the brain to the front part of the brain, the prefrontal cortex, which, some people's works better than others, depending on the day. But what that means is it takes it from the reptilian sort of side where we started as, many prior to the caveman days sort of thing, cave person's days. I'm being mindful.
Yeah.
But from where we came from as human beings, moving it from the emotional side and the fight, flight or freeze side to the prefrontal cortex where we can actually think about it more. And that's really can be helpful for a lot of people. Yeah. Andy Gallagher Music, welcome.
Hi, Andy.
Oh, yes, that actually, Andy, I'm glad you brought that one up. Physically writing an issue down on paper, you can screw it up, tear the piece of paper, and it can be absolutely great and let it go. Absolutely, that is actually one of the tools that is used in ACT, of all things, of actually writing things down. And it would also, another one which is really good, that I've just remembered too, is all the, often when we're in that deep, dark hole and everything seems to be bad. We can't notice the good. We can't see good things. We can't, it's just the darkness. It's a horrible feeling. But what you can do is you can write down all the things, I'm a bad person. That's often the story that our mind tries to replay to us endlessly. I'm a bad person. I'm no good at this, It plays into the imposter syndrome that we all know and don't like as well. But, again here.
Mega,
so you can write all the bad stuff on a piece of paper and with that piece of paper then turn it over. And then write the opposite, all the good things, because you cannot have one without the other.
Right, true. Yeah.
And that is a really good exercise and a nice reminder to ourselves, especially with grief and loss, is that when we're grieving and from the loss of someone, all the bad stuff is because we had so much good. And we sometimes forget the flip side of that paper, and we need to understand that, okay, we're going through all the bad stuff, but hey, what's the opposite of that? Where have we come from? And it's hard to see it at the time, and that's why it is so important for that professional help to get.
Yeah. What Andy mentioned there, again, I don't know how the professional world fits in with this, but again, personal experience. He's talking about letting the problem go. And then Jade's mentioned this word ritualistic. That really struck me there because years ago I would think, what a load of old cobblers.
Me too, yeah.
But I remember about 10 years ago I had a whole set of grievances that were rattling round and round in my brain. And out of desperation, because that's where you can get to sometimes, I wrote them down and I had a fire where I was. These are grievances I had with people or what have you. And I took that list and I screwed the paper up and threw it in the fire and burned it. And it was really powerful. It was actually almost instant. So for me, if you try this at home, folks, first of all, be careful with the fire. But second of all, different things work for different people. For me, you might want to try it. It was a way of just letting go. Now, I believe that, and the word ritualistic is so perfect from Jade there, I believe that in Western society, we don't perhaps place enough value on rituals and understand how powerful they can be. And just one more example, if you don't mind. I listened to, he's a Buddhist monk here in Perth called Ajahn Brahm, runs the Serpentine Monastery. And he does, I've seen him a couple of times, but I watch his talks on YouTube as well. And he was talking a few weeks ago, I was watching it, and he was saying that he does a ritualism with his slippers. Right. So he doesn't wear his slippers in bed, and he symbolises that his slippers are his problems, the things that are on. So as he gets to his bed, takes his slippers off, pops them under, and says, the bed is for sleep.
Yep.
So I'm just going to pop those slippers problems. I'm going to park those for the next few hours.
That's good,
right?
isn't it? I like that.
And, I can pop them back on tomorrow, but I'm here to sleep.
Yeah.
And I haven't tried that because I don't have any slippers, but I don't know if it works with socks or not. Maybe. But no, seriously, it's just I don't want to be doom and gloom, but sometimes when you get desperate enough, you'll try some things that perhaps you wouldn't try when you were not quite so desperate. You know, there's a weird sense in which, not always, but for some of us, for me, sometimes getting low enough has caused me to take action, to reach out and try things that I otherwise wouldn't have tried. Unfortunately, sometimes we have to get there, but do try. You'll be surprised what works that you may have discarded. Yeah. Sorry, jump in.
No.
Interrupt
you're right.
me.
No.
If you don't interrupt me, I'm going to keep talking.
Oh, okay.
Okay, go.
So I was going to just say something. Those rituals are incredibly important, and a lot of that stuff that Mike's talking about is all the self-help stuff. Be careful. There's good advice out there. There's some not so good advice too. So just be aware.
Especially about gain staging. Anyway.
Don't trust anyone about gain stage. I still don't understand it. But anyway, and I've watched all of his videos.
Sorry, carry on. I'm making light of an important point you were making there. Carry on, yeah.
So I can't remember what it was. No, I can.
The good and the bad advice.
Good and bad advice. So be aware that there is some really good advice out there and bad advice out there, because it can be triggering to some people work well and cope better when they hear, oh, well, it's depression. Oh, well, that's okay. I'll feel better. And then other people go, oh, I've got depression. What a terrible thing. So some information out there will, and I've seen some Reddit, I don't know why, but I've seen some Reddit things where people have said, oh, I've got this, and this, and in less than a sentence they've said, what's wrong with me? And then I've seen so-called professionals on Reddit, whether they are or not, say, oh, well, my diagnosis would be this or that. And I'm going, that is the worst thing ever. It can take, and especially for some people with severe mental illness, and there's a whole range of things, and a lot of people that I've worked with, beautiful, wonderful people that I've worked with in the past, who have just unfortunately had some unfortunate things happen to them where their mental health is really seriously impacted, and they have gone years without a proper diagnosis and been to so many professionals, because mental health is just such a challenging thing, because we are all very, very different. And when people say, wouldn't it be great if, I saw a broken arm and I could say, oh, you poor thing with your broken arm, and then, oh, mental health, and oh, you poor thing about mental health. Yes, it would be great if the stigma got to that, but a broken arm is a break in the bone, and a break and it's that bone, and it's a break. Whereas mental health, anxiety for me is different to you. Depression for me is different to you. Borderline personality disorder is different from one person to another. Schizophrenia is different from one person to another. So it is. We need to remove the stigma to be able to have conversations and assist people where we can, or at least be signposts. And that's something I'd like to get on to next, if I may.
Can I just mention
go
this?
on.
Can I just mention?
See, I knew this was going to be a tough one. Yeah, go on.
The word stigma, right? So I'm not saying everybody should do this. Like, it's everyone's choice whether they talk about their personal experiences or not. So this is not a should thing. For me personally, I talked about some of my mental health issues on my channel maybe a year or more ago. I can't remember. Yeah. And I was pretty open about a couple of my experiences in life. And for me, it was like, I hate this word, but I'm an influencer, right? People listen to me. And so for me, it was partly about, what, are you going to do that just so that you can make a living or get some nice stuff or whatever? it's nice that it can serve some sort of purpose above that. And so that's why I decided to do it. I recognise that some people in the same position might not be ready, and that's fine. But, we're all influencers, really. If you're a parent, you're an influencer, or if you're a friend, you're an influencer. And I'll just suggest that if you feel that you can, if you feel that you're able to share your personal experiences with these things, I think it's helpful, because we keep talking about the stigma side of it. Well, we can only destigmatize it by being open.
Yeah.
I mean, it's the only way.
Yeah.
So if you're a sufferer and you're not being open, I mean, that's understandable.
Yeah, totally.
But if you feel ready, if you do feel ready, then you can be a part of the solution to it, I think. A part of it. It's a long-term solution, which is probably going to take decades in each of our cultures. But I'll show stigma.
Stigma, and it's
a difficult thing.
It is a difficult thing, and it's going to take many, many years for it to change. I've always likened it to the C word, cancer.
Oh, sorry. Yeah.
Yeah, that one. Yeah. That C word.
I thought you were going to say cock.
No. I don't swear, do I, Mike?
It's a type of chicken, isn't it?
That's it, yes. Yeah. Male version. No, many decades ago, almost generation ago or two, no one would utter the word cancer, right?
Yes.
So...
And it's mostly curable, strangely enough.
Yep.
Yeah, there you go.
So it's like I liken mental health and the stigma about talking mental health to that. It was not many people knew about it. Not many people could be cured or go into remission or have any hope of living a normal life. And similarly, mental health has had that stigma, but it also goes back to history of many, many decades ago, where anyone with any sort of mental health issue was institutionalised for life. And all of that encompasses everything to do with it has taken generations for it to change. So I don't see, probably not in our lifetime, we're getting on to the second half of our lives, but only just though, isn't it? Only just. But yeah.
You never know, medical breakthroughs.
We could last longer.
Here at 200 years old.
Oh my.
Still talking about gain staging.
I still don't get it. But I think... At least we can laugh. But one of the things that I think is important is to lead by example if you can. And it does take it, if you've had a recent experience, don't feel compelled to share your story straight away, because it could be quite raw and quite emotional for you, quite draining, quite stressful, and it could impact your own mental health in sharing your experience too soon. I was told when I became a support worker that they only gave me the job, and it was very rare because my really bad experience was only 3 years prior, and they prefer it, if you do have a lived experience, to have a 5-year break. 5 years is a long time, but when you're talking mental health, if you have had a mental health experience of any kind, you can remember it like it was yesterday. Because it's one of those things that it's a bad thing, and our filing system in our brain tends to file bad things more clearly than good to protect us. So it's doing its job, but understanding that is the tough thing. Can I move on to how we can help a mate?
Sure.
Can we move on to that
You're
side
uniquely
of things?
qualified to talk about that, aren't you?
I am a little bit, because that's kind of what my
you've been
work
doing
was. And
for the last week.
Recently I've been helping my mate here, Mike, and just being a mate. But I am in a better position. I've studied the topic. I've worked in the area as a professional. I've taught the subject matter, and also I've taught how to have the conversations with someone. And I've also helped those who have been in crisis, and that's whether thoughts or actions of self-harm or suicide have been a part of that. And to have those conversations, and a lot of these words are thrown around of, it's just, just ask your mate, are you okay? But that can be extraordinarily scary for people because they don't want to hear the answer. They really don't want to hear the answer, because they're not well equipped. And when I was teaching this, everyone in the class would say and would ask, that was their main reason for being there. How do I have the conversation? So my first go-to is, if there is a in your local area, district, you can Google this. I haven't got links to it because it is different in every state and country and all those sorts of things. But, for example, Pete Johns is doing his walk at the moment to raise money for the Black Dog Institute here in Australia. That is one organisation that provides education and courses and printed matter and a whole range of information. There are many, many others, and you will find them in your area. You can go and do a mental health first aid course, or a mental health course, or a suicide awareness prevention course, all those sorts of things. You might find that your local council or local government area or whatever might provide free courses for you. You might find out that in your workplace there's these types of courses. Or you can just simply find out the link in the description below on that web page. If you actually look at that information there, they've actually got details of what is anxiety, how can I help someone? What is depression, how can I help someone? So what I would say to people is that, yes, if you feel okay about talking to someone, then offer to someone and say, hey, are you okay? And if you are scared of the answer, that's normal. That is okay. And if you don't know what to do when they say to you, I'm really depressed and I need some help, and you don't know what to do, here's a couple of tips for you. First of all, it is always good to see your physical health professional, so a GP, a doctor or someone, because sometimes mental health concerns can actually be caused by physical health. Okay, so it's always good to go to a doctor. Here in Australia, we have mental health plans that are only instigated by a GP. So in order to get to see a psychiatrist or psychologist here in Australia, you need to take that step to do that. So what can you do as a mate? Phone the doctors for them. Say, hey, I can make the appointment for you. Or do you want me to take you there? I can take an afternoon off work or leave work a little bit early. Do you want me to pick you up and drive you there? They may not feel capable of driving. What else can you do as a mate? You can say, okay, well, I don't know what to say. Be honest with them. That is the best thing, okay? And don't judge them, okay? No judging, because we are all different. We have emotions. We're human. Please don't say the words, I understand, because you don't. No one does. No one knows exactly what I went through, and I've had different bouts for different reasons throughout my life, and I may or may not disclose that over time. Can
I just interject?
Yes, please.
If you've been in that situation before and you have said, I understand, it's forgivable.
Yeah.
It's a human thing to say.
Yeah,
okay, so don't feel bad about that, by the way.
Yeah, good point there, Mike, because, I know I've done it before too.
I understand.
I understand.
Yeah, I understand.
Yeah, I understand. Okay, we joke about it, but yeah, I understand. It's a tough thing. It is a tough conversation to instigate, to say to a mate, I'm not okay, and it's an even harder one, I think, to listen to and to know what to do. Just know you can only do what you can do. It's like physical first aid. If you come across a road accident or something and all you can do is, I remember to lay them on their side or something so they can breathe. Do what you can. Be the good Samaritan, Call for an ambulance. You can do those things. Similarly, if you're with a mate and he or she or they say to you, look, I'm experiencing this. Can you help me? I will outright say, look, I'm not equipped to do that. I'm not a professional, but can we call one now and I'll put them on speaker? okay? And we can talk to someone together, or I can leave you my phone and you can talk. I'll be over here if you need. Or can I call a closer friend or a family member to come and pick you up and not be alone? If for any circumstance, and I will highlight this, and this is the tough topic of suicide or self-harm, okay? It's called non-suicidal self-injury, okay? And it's not a cry for help because they need help. It's not someone trying to put it on that, oh, I'm going to hurt myself if. They still need help. I don't care who they are. They need help. So we help them. That's it. That is it. And what we do is we ask them outright, are you having thoughts of suicide? Are you thinking of killing yourself? Do you think you'll take any action? But only if you feel you can. I always go for phone a friend. Let's talk to a professional on the phone together. But if you ask those questions, you might get an answer you don't like, but it will be the best thing you can do for another human being on this planet.
Yeah.
Okay, that got to me. But
I mean, you're absolutely right. And look, if you're trying to help someone out and you're a bit clumsy about it, it's okay. Forgive yourself for that.
Yeah.
The biggest thing for a lot of us is just to be heard, to be recognised, to be felt that, you know, our existence is important to at least one other person in the world. So asking the question and then having to listen is powerful, you know, is powerful in itself. You know, in some ways, this is not something about the modern age or education. This is human beings have always understood how to comfort each other. You've got that ability to do that, I think. But, it's tremendously important. Of course, it's tremendously important. This is the downside to interacting with professionals. Bless you. Bless you. This is the downside. And again, I'm just talking as a guy's point of view. I'm not talking a professional, and this is my own experience, is that you ultimately kind of know that the person's getting paid to listen to you. So there's a side to that where there's a good and a bad side to that. In a sense, if you are aware of that, you know this person's doing their job, so they're not connected to you. So that's where, as a friend or a family member, you have that unique position, right? Because a therapist can give you advice, can give you things that you can do, can work with you as a person who understands it, but they're not there to love you, right? And that's what family and friends do.
Oh, so
you know.
Okay, yeah.
You know, I mean, it's essentially a really big difference, you know. No one can pay someone to love someone, okay? So you can do that, and it's not it's just makes the world of difference, you know. We get to be honest with you.
Yeah.
This is feelings of being loved and belonging and being needed, to your existence being required. To feel that is a very powerful feeling and can get you through another day.
Yep.
You know, and each time you get through another day, you create more opportunities to learn about not just days, but how to get through weeks and months, you know. So never underestimate it, you know, how powerful it is, even if for you it's an uncomfortable thing. To hear the response, as Keeonra is saying, can be very challenging.
Very challenging.
To hear responses from someone you care about. But, you know, trust yourself a little bit. You're human. We've probably been able to do this during our evolution long before anyone wrote books about it or went on courses about it, you know. So, you know.
One of the things that I found is I've had to ask the tough questions, the toughest questions, to the people I worked with, to family, to friends, to too many people. You know, I started the mental health first aid course as an instructor, and there were 7 people a day dying by suicide in Australia every day. And by the time I finished as an instructor, when COVID hit, classes in person stopped because of that. And I lost my job because of that one. But I had been doing it for 5 years, and after only 5 years, it had gone up to 9 people a day. And that really gets to me because they are all preventable to a degree. Okay, they are preventable, and I'm glad you're about to. You said that, Jade. I always remind myself when seeing a therapist that they are most likely seeing a therapist themselves, and helps me get over the feeling of paying someone. Absolutely. And as a mental health worker, I had they call it supervision. My supervision was once a month, and that was to check on my own mental health. So I was seeing another professional who was, getting into my head, so to speak, to see if, because they worked with me, they could notice a change in behaviour, whether my mental health was being affected by vicarious trauma, and it is a very, very, very real thing. I worked with people every day, and it was exhausting, mentally so exhausting, and burnout is one of the biggest parts of the job and was one of the reasons why I ended up leaving. Also, the passing of my mother at the time, it was too hard for me to cope with that loss personally, and also with dealing with those that I felt I couldn't support properly. Getting help yourself is vitally important. All psychologists have supervision. So you are absolutely correct, Jade. All therapists, all counsellors, they all must to hold their licences and to retain their professional status within their recognised professional bodies. They do actually have to have some sort of supervision and hours of supervision. We as a mate who helps someone, if you're going to do that, get some help yourself, okay? Not only for someone that, for us, we've sought help and we've sought friends and family support, and at the moment of needing that help, it's hard to sort of see or relate or understand that we are causing some distress to the other person. That is a tough thing to see at the time, but we really appreciate that mate being there for us. But understand, as that mate, friend, family, person, whatever, that's having that difficult conversation, you too need some help. You can also feel free. Please, you have our permission. Please go and get some help. You can call these numbers in the link in the description below, because it is absolutely vital that you look after your mental health as well as those that you are helping. Okay, because none of us, at the end of the day, I'm not a psychologist. I've worked in the mental health sphere. I study a lot of mental health stuff. I've worked in that area, but I'm not as a professional as someone may need. And so everybody's needs are different.
And one thing I've done a couple of times in my life, I'm a bit older than you, so I've had a lot more
a few years.
A lot more grey hair than you. It just interestingly, and I don't know if this is recommended or not, again, just life experience, I've sometimes sought preemptive help with psychologists. So I'll use a real life example because it's on my YouTube channel, and I talked about the death of my son on there. And years later, when my wife was pregnant and my daughter was due, and I just thought, this could be tricky for me, having another baby. So, I just went to the GP and asked for a referral. And, during the pregnancy and leading up to the birth, I was having some counselling during that time as well. So you can do that as well. Can I tell you a funny little story? It's not a funny story, but this is to highlight something. I was just thinking, because we're talking about professionals and mates, and I just wanted a real life example to demonstrate the difference that a mate can make. And so it wasn't really a mate, but so some years ago, after a breakups, by the way, for men can really affect your mental health. Well, women as well, of course. But I know that the suicide rate in Australia for men after divorce or separation is significantly higher than some other times. Anyway, I was hospitalised after a breakup, but in the accident or the emergency department, where I was there for about 3 days. And I used to smoke back then. And so, getting visits, obviously regular visits from, sort of triage mental health, and then a couple of follow-up meetings with psychologists in the hospital, really good, helpful people and everything. But because I was smoking in the emergency ward, I had to ask permission to go outside to smoke. And for whatever reason, in this particular emergency ward, you had to be accompanied by one of the security guards. So this poor guy who had to just keep going outside and smoking with me every 20 minutes, he was from Iran. So his grasp of the English language wasn't fantastic. I think he also worked as a bouncer in nightclubs as well. And so he sort of said to me while I was having a smoke, "So why are you here?" Right. And I said, "Just broke up with my partner. It's been several years and blah, blah, blah." And he sat there and he put his arm on me and he said, "That's tough, man. That's a very tough thing to go through." And he said, "I broke up with my girlfriend 6 months ago and it was one of the worst times in my life, and I really feel for you." I'm not dissing the professionals, but at the time I was there, he helped me more in that moment than the professional help I was getting, because it was a little bit, because it was man to man for a start. So there was a big burly man telling me it was okay to be sad after a breakup, so I didn't have to feel so yuck about myself. Because for men, I'm afraid we do still feel embarrassed about the idea that we're being weak because we're breaking down after something or we're crying and all those types of things. So just in that moment, just as a human being, he only spoke to me for about a minute, but he made a massive amount of difference, just reaching out with some human kindness and understanding there. So you can be that person.
Yeah. And also things like being part of groups as well can be good for that because here in Australia, and I think this is worldwide, I'm not sure, but 95 or great 85%, or there's a large number, I don't know the exact percentage, but the higher percentage is female psychologists. So if you are looking for a psychologist in Australia, at least anyway, then you're more likely to see a female, and that may not be appropriate for you, but it might be. It doesn't mean that they're any less of a professional, but at that time it was nice for you. You felt, as Michelle's put in the chat, he kind of said, "I understand," but in a nice way, because I can relate to you. You're not alone. Yes, because that is so important to understand that I'm not the only one. Because there's a sense of feeling, isn't it, that I'm the only one on this planet that feels the way I feel.
Well, yeah, for me it was a sense of a breakup. Don't you just get over that in a couple of days? You should be fine. I mean, other examples of this, for example, I think I've been guilty of underestimating this in the past, is things like a pet dying, because I'm not a pet owner, so I've probably underestimated that. I'm sure some of you there will be going, "Oh, absolutely, a pet dying can be a tremendously traumatic experience for many people." So, but we can get ideas in our head like, I'm alone, but I'm also uniquely weak in the sense of the way I'm reacting to this life situation. And it's just not true. No. When you really, because it's a taboo, we don't talk about it sometimes. That's right. And that's created a problem, because in actual fact, so many people suffer for so many reasons: breakups, financial reasons, grief of all kinds. Or many, many reasons. Many reasons.
I mean, it can be anything. And, what might be a traumatic experience for one person can seem like a day ending with Y, the letter Y. It's nothing. It's just how we are. Everyone is uniquely different, and so too are our brains and how it has been influenced up until this point in time, right here, right now. We are an accumulation. Right now. Yeah. We are an accumulation of this moment. There's a good song by Keeonra. But yes, there's this moment, this place. But there's a reason why our brains think that way. It's because of all our past influences. It's part of our conditioning up until a point, which is how we're reacting to a situation now. So in all of that, if I could just say the next little bit, which is self-care. We talked about that the psychologists have supervision, and as part of their training to become psychologists, you have to go through supervision. Another reason why I didn't become a psychologist was it was going to cost me in Australia at least $20,000 for the year of supervision just when I was a provisional psychologist, and which was going to be 4 years after another lot of study, which was going to cost me about $80,000. So I decided against that, so I decided to learn more about gain staging. So, and I still don't understand that. So self-care is very important. So what is self-care? It is to do something that brings you joy. It is that simple. And I ask each and every one of you, as a little bit of homework after today's stream or after seeing this on the replay, is to at least think about it, if not do something. So it is all about what gives you a moment of joy, what is something meaningful to you. We'll give a couple of examples. One of my favourite things is I just love going to the beach. It doesn't matter what the weather is. It can be pouring with rain or hopefully not too hot like it's going to be here in Perth tomorrow. At least with sunscreen in the hat is fine. But go to the beach and watch the waves roll in. And just sit and be and listen to the roar of the waves come in and feel the salt spray and just watch it and breathe it and feel it and go for a walk in it. Another thing for me is I'm a gamer. I love playing computer games. Another thing for me is I love going through, of all the things, Arturia Pigments, all the presets, and just doing something like that, something that will not take me away from the world, but will just give me a little bit of me time, self-time. It can be reading a book, watching a favourite show. What are some of the things that give you a moment of joy in your day?
Although it sounds cliche, it works as much as the cliche is just being with nature, to be honest with you.
Yep.
Nearby to here, not that it matters to anyone watching the stream, but there's a place called Bells Falls or Bells Rapids.
Yep.
I get myself along there. I find it amazing.
I still haven't been.
Oh, well.
We should go. Take the drone. Take the drone.
So those types of things. I don't know why when you were talking, but I've recently discovered at one of the shops I go to, they sell these little tubs of fairy floss. I mean, it should be. Oh, yeah. You should buy it for children, really.
I'm a big kid.
But once every couple of weeks, I've picked one up, and I thought, God, this is a bit embarrassing. I'm like saying to the lady at the checkout, "It's not for me. It's not for me." I feel like I'm buying condoms or something, right? It's not for me. And I get home and open that fairy floss, candy floss they call it in some places, and I'm like, oh yeah, I become a little kid again. Yeah. And it's wonderful, just in front of the TV or whatever.
Why not?
So
that's cool.
Look, it's harmful to you probably if you do a lot. But
sugar is bad, by the way. Research has shown it does cause depression. So cutting down on the sugar is possibly a good thing.
So, but it really is important, I suppose. The only thing I'll say, and you can help out, that sometimes when you're really in the middle of the intense feelings, emotions that you're having, you sort of forget to do these things and you can't even focus on those. That's correct. When I've been really, really low, it's like I can't even think of anything that gives me pleasure. And if I try it, there's not much pleasure in it. What's the answer to that? Go.
Here's the answer to that. So when we're well, that's the answer to it, okay?
Right.
Because when we're not travelling so well, we can't. And that's when we need a support. We need someone to say, hey, have you had some sleep? Oh, yeah, if I lay down in bed, I've been awake for 3 days. Thanks for reminding me to go to the bedroom. Your brain doesn't work because it's that frontal cortex part of the brain that does all those things.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So the back part, which is the emotional side of things, which takes over in those situations when anxiety and depression is kicking in and other mental disorders, that is when we're not thinking straight. We can't think straight. You've got that fog in it. I used to call it, when I was experiencing bad depression, it was the cotton wool in my head. It felt like someone had just opened up my skull and just packed full of cotton wool. I could not think. Like my partner would say to me, do you want a cup of tea? It's like, I don't know. Do I want a cup of tea? I can't think. I honestly could not answer that question. And that's always stuck out in my mind.
Michelle's just said she got a puppy. It's interesting though, and I don't know if there's any theories behind this, but somehow the act of having to care for something else or someone else seems to be really therapeutic. Now, when I went through some of my most difficult times in life, they came at times when I had children, young children, and at times I was solely responsible for them. I had no choice but to get out of bed, even though I really didn't want to. And I must admit, I kind of resented it at the time. I didn't resent them, but I resented the situation I was in. It was just so hard when I couldn't even think straight for myself to like cook a meal for someone else or whatever. But looking back, I'm so glad that I had to, that there was something that was sort of, needing me more than. Yeah. Now, I feel like there should be a disclaimer. Sometimes people can't cope with having responsibility for something else. So I want to be careful about that. I don't want you to feel that you have to always do that because
everyone is different.
Everyone's different, yeah. But for me anyway, and I can imagine having a puppy, even a goldfish. They're not real pets though, are they? But anyway.
My goldfish died a few months ago.
Really?
I'm not good with looking after pets.
Sorry.
It's okay. I understand. But we joke. But it is one of those things. And look, I love your puppy, Michelle, and I'm looking forward to catching up with it. And we're catching up on Sunday with your puppy in the park for a coffee. And that's another thing too. Do things that are meaningful, that give you joy. So that's self-care, okay? The other thing with self-care is to seek professional help yourself, okay? If you think, oh, wow, I've had a conversation with my mate or my spouse or my child or my parent or whatever, because be mindful that also parents, grandparents, unfortunately, the highest suicide rate for people here in Australia are those recently widowed men over the age of 75 and women in their 50s going through menopause. So hormones play a big part of anxiety and depression and mental health illness as well. That's why a GP is incredibly important. So you've got to look after yourself. Self-care is important. The only way that we can do that is to keep our mental health good when we're good. So we've got these good habits when we're not so good, if that makes sense.
Okay.
So
yeah, that does make sense.
Creating good habits, and a lot of this is common sense. And this is about the common sense approach, because if it's easy to do, then we're more likely to do it. So in Australia, we've got this thing called Act, Belong, Commit.
Belong, Commit. Okay.
Yep. Okay, so ACT is doing something meaningful that you love doing or whatever. So it might be a walk in nature or going to the beach, whatever. Belong, a sense of belonging. As human beings, we like to belong to a tribe if we were looking from a historical perspective of where humans have come from. But we like to belong to a group, belong to a Facebook group, belong to a community of musicians out there. belong to a men's shed group or a Rotary Club or, the local gardening club or the local walking club, which means you're getting exercise and out there as well. Whatever it is, become a part of something.
Militia.
Yeah. No. Where did that come from? You were looking at my daughter's art.
Running around in the forest amongst nature with machine guns. Anyway, yeah, sorry. They get a sense of belonging.
Anyway, a little bit distracting, but okay. Yeah. But yeah, so a sense of belonging is a good part. So act, belong, and commit is all about, yes, I'm going to commit to this group. I'm going to make a commitment and turn up once a week, once a fortnight, but don't overcommit, okay?
Militia.
Can't take him anywhere. It's all about act, belong, commit, but it's also other really simple stuff that you can do, like eating. And I'm not going to say eat healthy because that's different for everyone too. I have a lot of food allergies, so what's healthy for me is totally different. But the dinner tonight wasn't bad, was it?
It was really nice. She cooks a really nice
chicken cacciatore. It was really lovely.
Super nice.
But
company was good too. Her daughter Sarah showed me so many nice pictures that she does.
Lovely.
Really, really good.
Really nice artwork. Yeah. That's her therapy. That's her self-care because she has to live with me. Self-care is also about eating as healthy as you can. And I understand if you're going through a tough time, cooking a big meal is hard. But what you can do for a mate to help them out is maybe, give them some leftovers for dinner that they can have the next night. So we all know.
Chicken cacciatore for me tomorrow.
Mike's having chicken tomorrow night.
So much nicer than Cocoa Pops. So
who hasn't been there when all the dishes are dirty and all you've got left is a mixing bowl and a box of Cocoa Pops? I remember my 20s after a breakup myself, actually.
Yeah.
I think all of us have lived there a bit. So eating as healthy as you can under the circumstances, but when you're well, eating really, really healthy food is good for you. Fruit and vegetables, I know I mentioned the two dirty words, but alcohol and drugs, minimise if you can, or, for some people, giving them up completely is just too hard, especially when you're in a crisis situation, but certainly that can mask situations. So cutting down at least if you can. Exercise. Research has absolutely shown that it will help with anxiety, and anxiety can lead to depression. So if you help with anxiety, it will help with signs of depression as well. So exercise is important. It just means, like I said, going to the beach and watching the waves. I might go for a bit of a walk while I'm there as well. I'm getting vitamin D from the sun, which also has been known to help with mental health disorders as well. Okay, being out in the sunshine also not too much like we got sunburned the other day, but helping with vitamin D, and vitamin D helps with mental health, but also it helps to lower our blood pressure. Lower blood pressure helps to lower anxiety. So there's a whole range of good things about being outside in nature and going for a walk. And you can do that with your friend as well. Go for a walk. The other thing, sleep. Sleep is so important and is often really challenging when you're going through a mental health situation. For me personally, I had to get melatonin from the GP, from the doctor, to help me sleep because I was not sleeping. My anxiety was absolutely through the roof. And my panic attacks, for most people, they last several minutes. Yeah. Mine last up to 10 hours. So mine are pretty horrendous, and that's why I've said I've had to call ambulances in the past for my anxiety. And then my depression has been incredibly depressing. Not too bad, but I've several stages through my life for different things. I endured a psychological injury in the workplace, and I had postnatal depression with my first child. So, and they were incredibly scary and terrifying. And fear is what is at the root cause of all of this. It's fear of the unknown. It's fear of what's going to happen next. It's fear of what happened in the past happening again. And that can spark anxiety and depression for anyone. And let me highlight this too, Mark. Anyone can go through this. A lot of people say it's the 1 in 5 people will have a mental health disorder. It's more than that. I'm sorry to say. It's almost all of us at some point will have it. It's more common than you think. Those statistics and numbers, and I saw a report today on the ABC News, which is here in Australia, that mental health diagnoses and for those requiring assistance with mental health for young people, so those under their mid-20s, have risen in the last 5 years by over 50%. The numbers are skewed because the data collected is skewed. They don't collect data from those in prison, from those who are sleeping rough, who may not have a proper address. Those numbers are not from rural and remote areas per se here in Australia. So the numbers are gathered for politicians to make decisions about our mental health facilities, our hospitals, our programs, support workers like I used to be, et cetera, et cetera. And unfortunately, as we have all heard and continue to hear, what we have now available to us as people who need mental health things in place, there's not enough, is there? There's never enough beds in the hospital. There's not enough beds in the mental health wards. They're actually closing Greylands here, the mental health hospital here, because the real estate is more valuable to sell for homes. And I worked a lot at the hospital here for many years with people who, unfortunately, that was their only solution. And, you know, it's a tough thing that, unfortunately, the numbers are not correct. And I spoke to a lot of mental health professionals when they said, so how many people do you reckon? Is it the 1 in 5? And they always go, no. So at the moment here to get and see a professional psychologist a lot because of COVID in recent years, the stressors went up. People lost their jobs. People were uncertain. The fear of the unknown, fear of all sorts of things. People lost a lot of people too around the world. There was a lot of grief and loss, totally out of our control, totally out of our control. So many things happened. And so demand for professional help has increased, whereas, as I indicated before, the barrier to actually become a professional is horrendous. And there's not enough professionals to see those who are seeking help and needing it. So things need to change. And I was part of what I would definitely call a broken system. That was another reason why I quit my job in the end. There were a lot of reasons, and I couldn't handle working in a broken system anymore because I could see what was happening. I could see how I was doing everything personally that I could to help the person one-on-one. I was going into their homes and helping them on a daily basis, to just go do the grocery shopping with them, to just catch a bus. But I couldn't do it because I knew that the system was created to not actually help them. It was there to just control them and keep them away from the rest of the public. And that just made me, I cared too much. That was my problem. And I certainly had a little bit of vicarious trauma from that because I'm so empathic, because I care so much about other people. And that's what we've got to be mindful of as mates helping each other. So I would implore each and every one of you after this video, if you see it in a replay, to seek help, professional help if you need, but certainly do something that gives you hope and something that helps you, because mental illness often occurs when we have no hope and no help, when it seems like we're in a hopeless and helpless situation. So if we can have something meaningful in our life, something to look forward to, we have a support system, crew of people around us, whether that be a lifeline, a counselling line, and a counselling website for young people and teenagers and children. A lot of young people are using website chats and that sort of thing. find what works for you and explore them. Hopefully when you're absolutely well, put those phone numbers in your phone, go for a walk with a friend, catch up for a coffee and their puppy in the park, you know, chat on a YouTube channel and say good day to people and have that sense of belonging and meaning. And I think that's so vitally important to remain mentally healthy when we are mentally well, but also to create those habits so when we can have the opportunity to help someone.
I'm not suggesting this is any solution, just more of an observation.
Yeah.
That what you tend to find is what I've found is that of course when you're in a low spot, you're seeking answers, you're seeking habits. And I think personally for me what's happened, and I'm sure people will recognise this, is then when you get in a good spot or when things are going well, it's easy to let these sort of habits and things fall by the wayside. And often, you know, it may be you've got a new job or you've had a successful YouTube channel and that makes you feel good for a while, or maybe you know, a relationship for a while. You got a new relationship, you fell in love, you felt good and all that. It's easy during those times to forget about these healthy habits, you know. So I think it's worth remembering that. And it sort of reminds me, I showed you a video of an old guy the other day.
You did. And
what he said was, if you have a comfortable, wonderful life, you're in trouble.
Yes.
Right. And what he's alluding to is kind of that in a way. You know, so I think it's our work in a way, to, if we could look at the bigger picture, for people like me who have had repetitive cycles, which is probably a lot of people, is to try and remember in the good times to create habits which are healthy. And that could be as simple as having the habit of going for a daily walk in the morning. So that, because if you, I tell you what, I didn't used to walk. I do now, but if you don't walk, for example, and then you find you're depressed and someone's saying you should go for a walk, you're not going to do it because it's just not something you do. And you think, why would I want to go for a walk? It's so boring. And whatever it is. Now I'm sort of almost addicted to walks. I don't function well. I don't feel good unless I go out for a daily walk. By the way, that was Chris Salem from he's another YouTuber. I chat to him and he was saying to me that's something he found super useful. Daily walks.
Mixdown online, Mixdown Academy. Yes, very good. Need to say hi to Lorraine from the produce aisle. We need to catch up soon. Talking about catching up with friends. It's been a few weeks since we've caught up. Bedtime for you, Jade. Thank you, my friend.
Good night, Jade. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for joining us. And look, absolutely. It's great to see you here, and it's really good. Don't work too hard on your. I know you're finishing your song Timber Song, and I'm looking forward to your next video. But thank you for sending us both positive vibes, and hope the clouds start to clear for anybody watching along. Absolutely, because it can be a troubling time for anybody going through this. And my key thing is, because if you are in a circumstance where you feel like there is no hope and there is no help, please know that you're finished. Your song's finished. Well done, Jade. Well done. I'm looking forward to hearing it. Scary clowns, but awesome as well. But yes.
Would you expect anything else?
No, not at all. Not at all. Jade, you're a star. Okay, that was corny. But yeah, if you are in that situation, seek help, because all of these helplines and counsellors and all those sorts of things, if they're not used, they don't get government funding. If they're not used on a regular basis, they can't apply for grants. So we need to sort of use them appropriately when you need to. And if you need to, then do that. If you need to call a friend or someone. And look, this was the one other thing. Sorry to harp back to this bit. If you think someone might harm themselves, stay with them. Don't leave them, okay? Stay with them and don't leave them, or at least make them promise that they will contact an ambulance or police themselves, 000 and tell them, or Lifeline here in Australia, or the appropriate thing, because often we will make promises to other people, but we won't make promises to ourselves. We will always, well, not always, but sometimes put others first before we put ourselves first and look after ourselves. So it's a bit of a thing that you can say to someone, hey, can you promise me that if you feel like this, you'll call me? Or can you promise me that if you feel this way, you will call this number? Because that sort of, and it's also using those words and that terminology. And as Andy Gallagher said earlier, English language is not great, but words, they do mean a lot for people.
Having said that, if someone does ask for your help in English language, don't reply in like Japanese or something. They might not understand you.
That's right, yeah.
Stick to the English language.
Stick to the English. Yeah, stick to the language that is native to both of you. But also seek help if you're with someone if I was with someone and English was the other person's, not their language, I would seek translator help as well.
Oh, and that reminds me.
Yes.
I'm glad you said that.
Yes.
I was being jovial about this, but the other thing, if you're not great with helping someone like verbally, if that makes you feel uncomfortable, if you know a mate is going through a difficult time, like cook them a meal. Or something along those lines. If there's indirect ways in which you can show real care for people other than just the conversation stuff as well. So it's a powerful thing when you give someone the time of day. Yeah.
There's a wonderful story about a gentleman in Sydney who has since passed away, but they called him the Angel because he lived opposite some cliffs in Sydney. And it was unfortunately a place where people did end their life. And his lounge room window was directly opposite the park. And he would notice someone there when he first moved into the house, and then they weren't there. And there was only one possible place they could have gone, which is incredibly sad. So he started of his own volition to go across the road, and probably not appropriate, but we're talking, back in the 80s, 90s, he'd take them a beer and he'd say to them, here, sit down with me. I may not know what to say, but I can listen.
Yeah, that's right, yeah.
And he saved literally, officially hundreds of lives, but thousands. And there are people alive today that still sing his praises. I can't remember his names or the details, but it's quite renowned in Australia here.
Such a nice story.
It is a wonderful thing, and that's what being a mate is. You may not feel equipped to do this yourself, and that is okay. But please be honest with whomever you're talking with and say, look, that's a bit heavy. I've asked you if you're okay and you've told me you're not. I don't know how to help you, but can we call someone who can? So put those numbers into your phone wherever you are locally in your area and region, and please look after yourself as that mate who might ask that question, who might get that answer. Act, belong to something, commit to something, be a friend, chat with people, go out in nature, exercise, eat a bit healthier, get lots of sleep, get good quality sleep. If you're having broken sleep or you're stressed about things that can affect your sleep, find out more about anxiety and depression. There's lots of websites. Educate yourself. The International Mental Health Day is on the 10th of October. And from Saturday next week, I think at least in Australia, it's Mental Health Week. So start having those conversations. And if anything, if you don't know where to start, if you say, hey, I've just found out some stuff about mental health, and you're talking with someone, point them to this video as a starting place, where we can just start the conversation. Yeah. Because I think that's important, and that will remove the stigma. Yeah. Because if we can all start talking about this really honestly and openly and be okay with that, yes, I know your puppies can affect your sleep, Michelle, but sometimes in a good way. You wouldn't have it any other way. It's like going back to that piece of paper I told you about, puppies affecting my sleep bad, but puppies are so good. So, but yeah, so many things can affect sleep, and sleep is at the absolute foundation of how our mental health is for the following day.
If puppies are disturbing your sleep, just say, hush, puppies.
See, this is the point where I'd say on that happy note, look, is there anything further, Mike?
No. I think, you've been wonderful, and it's been a pleasure to be here with you in your incredible studio, actually. I'm so impressed with it. And I think it's just a really important topic, and I, for one, just want to make sure that we talk about it.
Yeah.
It's just valuable because there's somebody out there who feels embarrassed or ashamed or what have you. So if they just see us all just talking about it, casual as anything, that's going to help.
I think
it's going to help them a lot.
I hope it helps. Look, I'll put it out there to anyone still in the chat, and I think that a few people are still there. If there's any questions, throw them in now, just before we head off, if you've got any questions. But as I was going to say, I think I did make some brief notes earlier, but I think we sort of covered everything. Just to reiterate again, neither of us are professionals in this space.
We're professional people.
We're professional people. We've lived lives. We've done stuff with things.
Stupid stuff.
Oh, so much. Let's not go there. That's a whole other video. That's definitely not for those under 18. But, yeah, I've worked in mental health. You worked sort of briefly in mental health. But if you need professional help, then please find someone who's close to you. The link below may help you in your region. It doesn't cover all countries, but it does cover America, Canada, New Zealand, Australia, UK, some Asian countries, some European countries. So please find out more. And if you don't know that much about mental health, go find out about doing a mental health first aid course. They are being run around the globe. I know they're actually compulsory for high school teachers in the US, for example. They are definitely being run in the UK, and they're definitely being run in Australia. I used to run them here in Australia in Perth. I'm no longer qualified, so I have put that part of my life aside. But I still remember the basics as much as my physical first aid certificate has run out, but I kind of remember how to help to save someone's physical life. So I feel confident that I could help someone if they needed to, and I think I've, in the past done an okay job with that.
You've done a brilliant job with at least one person.
At least one person. And look, first and foremost, I've just been a mate.
I'm just so obsessed with my hair. I can't take my eyes off it.
See, he has a haircut recently, and all he can talk about is his hair.
This the way that it cuts off at the top. Sorry, I know this is supposed to be serious.
These YouTubers, honestly. Look, so yeah.
Laughter's the best medicine. When you can get it, it's awesome medicine.
I used to be a funeral director. It wasn't appropriate. But anyway,
Can you imagine me doing that?
Can I tell a little story?
Go.
It is a little funny one.
Can I stop you?
No, you can't. It's my channel. Exactly. I can say that now. There's no wonderful. It's my channel. But yeah, so I was a funeral director for a couple of years back in Adelaide. We're coming up to 30 years ago now. A while ago. And one funeral we respected the occasion appropriately until it was at the cemetery and the headstone opposite said Richard in brackets Dick head. It was hard not to laugh throughout the entire ceremony. Look, you have to laugh. If you can laugh, then that is a good thing. So get lots of laughter when you are mentally well, because I know when you're not mentally well, it's hard to laugh. And Lorraine says you got magic hair.
You've inspired me now, right? Before I die.
Yeah. Here we go.
I'm going to change my surname to Hock. Yeah?
Right.
So the headstone says, "Here lies Mike Hock." Wouldn't that be brilliant?
I'll need to have another counselling session with Mike after this, I think. Oh, my goodness.
It could be worse. What if I change my surname to Litterus?
Oh, my God, it took my brain a second.
Oh, dear. Has anyone seen Mike?
No, stop.
Anyway, yeah.
I don't swear on my channel.
It's not a swear word, is it? It's a medical term.
It is. You are correct. You were training to be a nurse. So anyway, I've lost my train of thought completely now. But look, please, if you need assistance, please go get help. If you came here for comedy relief, I hope you got some laughter out of any of this, at least the last little bit. Look, if you would like to see us be here in this confined little box space again together, please put a comment in the description stuffy things, clicky bits below. And if you've liked this, I mean, I don't know why you would, but if you do, then do the thumbs up thing. And I don't mean that in a strange way, but I'm not judging.
Like, subscribe and comment. If you're watching the replay, make sure you comment. Helps the algorithm.
And we do like the algorithm gods. Yes, we do. All hail the... Anyway, so Lorraine's laughing, so that's good. All right. On that happy note, until then a bit more, look, thank you, Mike, ever so much
My pleasure.
for coming by. And for those who don't know, yes, we do live nearby, so it is very handy for us.
Yeah, I could literally chuck stuff at you.
I know.
Like if I'm not approving of your show, never mind hit the dislike button. I could literally throw cabbage from my house.
He'd be putting a comment in my live stream, and the next thing he could be knocking at my door. It's really scary.
Rubbish, rubbish.
Some people call it stalking. But anyway, no. So it's just the way the world worked out, wasn't it? And I think, in a lot of ways, some things are meant to be.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, because it was just one of those things that I actually reached out to you and said, what should I put in my studio? I'm thinking of making music. And you called,
that's right. And
you called me.
Yeah, I did. Did I?
Yeah, you called me out of the blue.
I can't be nice sometimes.
I know. Yeah. What went wrong? So, yeah. Look, thank you, Mike, again. And look, if you haven't met Mike before, then Creative Source is his YouTube channel. I will put a link.
Don't forget Studio One Reveal.
And I was about to say, Studio One revealed the new one.
Reveal.
I will put... I'm leaving that one alone. I'm not touching that one, especially if you change your surname. Anyway, so I'm losing my voice again. I'm never going to be able to sing again. I keep losing my voice. This is just tragic. But yeah, so I haven't put your links to your YouTube channel.
At least I didn't use the example of my surname being Hunt. Anyway.
No. Jade's so good at that. She has the...
she does that.
She has the merchandise. She was sprouting. Anyway.
It's not a swear word in Australia.
Look, words are words, and if you hear me or my children, then you would have heard several. But anyway... What was I saying?
Don't know.
I have no idea. Look, it's been fun. If you think we should do this sort of thing, put a comment below. That will help us. And I will put links in the description. I haven't yet. My apologies, Mike. To Creative Source YouTube channel and also Studio One Revealed is his. Are there any others?
No, just those two.
Okay, just those two.
There's some others, but we won't mention those.
Maybe they're private. Anyway, so...
OnlyFans promotion.
I'm just hang on. Maybe past this conversation, I'm going to go la 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 la. Okay, so it did get rather silly towards the end here, didn't it? But in all seriousness, please, if you do need help, please go get it. If you're helping and supporting someone and being a mate, please, it's okay, and you have everyone's permission. Don't be judgmental. Help them how you can, and get help for your vicarious trauma or being affected in any way. It could just be a case of, wow, man, that was heavy stuff. And it can be quite heavy because it is heavy. It's real life stuff. So don't be afraid to get help. Be mentally well after this, okay? Even just us talking about this could have triggered some stuff for people.
Can do.
Absolutely. So please, if you need some help after watching this video, please look at doing that, or maybe talking to someone that you feel you're okay to talk with. If you're in an unsafe situation, please seek help and please seek ways of getting out of that unsafe situation. There are certainly helplines in the link in the description below. And I'm not only talking about abuse of those who might be children or women. It can also be men. It can also be those of other sexual orientation who might feel hate. It's all the isms. It's the ageism. It's the sexism. It's the everythingism. We so many of us may not even be in a minority and feel discriminated against or hated. We all need help. All of us need help at some point. Reach out if you can. And please, everyone, stay safe. And as a lot of us creators would say, be kind to yourself, be kind to your mates and look after yourself. And if you can look after your mates and your family, do something joyful and meaningful, or at least think about it right now. And let me know what you think in the comments, and share your experience with someone if you feel strong enough to mentally, or at least call for an anonymous counsellor or someone who can often help.
All right. Awesome.
Okay?
Yep.
All right.
I love that.
Thank you very much.
Thank you,
and look, thank you to everyone in the live chat. We've had quite a few here today. Laureen from the Produce Aisle. Michelle's here with her puppy. Jade Star earlier, who had to go have a sleep. Bless you, Jade, for finishing your song. And we also had Andy Gallagher Music. We also had Jamie Mallender. Dude, thank you for joining us. And
Lily Pillies.
Manny from the Lily Pillies was here.
Yeah.
And, of course, us. We've been here the whole time, haven't we? Haven't moved. That's why my bottoms, I need to go for a walk. Maybe not outside. It's a bit dark at the moment. And, yes, see you Sunday, Michelle. We're going to a wonderful place called the Orr House. I've got to say that correctly. We're going to the Orr House for a coffee in the park with Michelle's puppy to get out into the sunshine and maybe take some photographs. We'll see how we go. But otherwise, just to relax and enjoy each other's company and shoot the shit and talk stuff. And it could be talking crap, but at least someone's liking and you.
Well, you really get onto roll here, aren't you, with the swearing?
Look, I know anything could happen. I better end the stream. I better stop now. Stop! Don't say it. No.